Test. Test. Okay.
It's not working.
It's not working.
Oh, that was
I think
awesome.
muting was the right call, so thank you. Okay. Well, I hope that wasn't as awful for everyone online as it was for those of us in the room. Welcome, everyone. We will call to order our regular meeting of council. And before we start, I'd like to acknowledge and recognize that we work, live, and play in the city of Port Alberni, which is situated on the unceded territories of the Sechot and Hupachesit First Nations. We do have an agenda in front of us. Are there any late items from councillors? Councillor Solda.
So, Madam Mayor, I would like to add to the agenda Johnson Road, the MOTI flashing light on Johnson Road at Adeline Street, and we'll have more discussion as we go along. And, and BC Ferries reducing space announcement.
Thank you. We will add those as new business items 6 and 7. Any other items from members of council? Seeing none, any items from our corporate officer?
No late items from corporate services.
Then would somebody like to move approval of our agenda with the 2 late items? Moved by Councillor Patola, seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And adoption of minutes. We have the minutes from the special and regular meetings of council on July 14th, 2025 to be adopted. Move to adopt by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Patola. Any comments? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. No delegations, no unfinished business, so on to staff reports. Our first quarterly report is from our officer in charge at the RCMP. Come on forward, Inspector.
Thank you very much for having me today. The report is, I submitted a slide report here.
It's in the, sorry, the slides are in the agenda? So you just need it?
Yeah, we're putting it on the screen.
There's nothing there, Kim.
There we go. All right, so then from here I can scroll through. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this second quarter reporting is going to cover the months of April, May, and June for Port Alberni RCMP. As is my inclination, I like to add a few photos here just to give some insight as to some of the things that we see every day. Here we have the front of the Port Alberni detachment, and hard to see there is Constable Vanessa Restrepo in her red serge, who would have been attending the Canada Day with Constable Jordan Florissant, providing lethal overwatch. I highlight the boat again, our marine vessel, because we had an electronic navigation refresher course delivered for all of our boat trained members to keep their skills up. Again, you see the front and back of our coin, and then you also see our new staff sergeant, new as of February of 2025, participating in McDonald's Day there beside the coin. There it is. Okay, so this is just a kind of an indices overview of what I'll cover today. Operations, highlighting proactive enforcement first, then covering off operations by area, followed by crime rate, the efforts of our forensic identification section, and finally a little bit on Crown submissions and sentencing. So here in operations, I have that we're experiencing a 2% higher call volume for this quarter than for the same period last year. That equates to 67 more calls for service than in 2024, this time period. We're on pace for just nearing 14,000 calls, but if everything remains the same to the end of the year, we're currently at 6,508 calls for service, and as I state, presuming no change, will be higher than last year. You can see here between Q1 and Q2 that our call volumes increased by 20% through the summer as we approach the summer months. Not working. There we go. Curfew checks. I want to make clear that this is a proactive effort, time and duties permitting. In the second quarter of 2025, our ability to conduct checks diminishes quite a bit as the summer approaches, given our increasing operational demands. The number of offenders released on conditions to this community places the burden for enforcing those conditions on our police force. And as these checks are solely a proactive effort, as I state, duties permitting, our ability to enforce conditions is greatly diminished by increasing summer call volumes that create operational pressures elsewhere. Checks are always highly encouraged, however, because we have a number of persons that are in our community on release orders, conditional sentence orders, probation orders, and undertakings. It's been my observation that we can see 15 to 20 checks occur in a night, and at least half of those are persons found in breach of their conditions. Regarding traffic enforcement, here in the top box, you're going to see that those numbers are solely reflective of our proactive effort to stop vehicles and issue violation tickets and/or warnings. Like curfew checks, the ability to stop vehicles is something that is time and duty permitting unless the observed offense is flagrant and happening right in front of the officer at the time. This stat box, or these statistics in this box, does not reflect impaired driving or immediate roadside prohibitions as seen in the next slide. Motor vehicle incidents that include hit and runs, property damage over and under $10,000 for the second quarter generated 48 municipal calls and 24 rural calls. Impaired drivers taken off the road by way of suspension or criminal code charge is also reflected in the next operations by area statistic reporting. Also to note is that these statistics do not include those of BC Highway Patrol or our immediate roadside safety units who often attend Port Alberni, often approximately once or twice per month to augment our local police efforts. Their reported results for attendance are enduringly significant and point to the potential benefits Port Alberni could realize if having a dedicated local enforcement team. Here is the City of Port Alberni's operations by area. These are the crime types that I reviewed for statistical reporting. You're going to see that in the second quarter for 2024, our total mental health related calls were 178. 41 apprehensions were made with a 23.03% apprehension rate. In quarter two for 2025, our total mental health related calls were 201 with 50 apprehensions, which reflects an increase to 24.87% apprehension rate. I also have here that in 2021, 2022, and 2023, mental health related calls for this same quarter equaled 258, 231, and 284 respectively. Apprehensions were 42, 25, and 47, or otherwise characterized by a 16.28%, 19.48%, and 16.55% apprehension rate. In the last 2 years, nearly a quarter of persons that police interact with on mental health related calls have been apprehended or taken before a physician, incurring hospital wait times. There are many factors that would contribute to the increased need to apprehend, and that would be the manner in which persons are presenting with acute symptoms or in crisis, often related to substance abuse, whatever that might be, maybe a psychotic break as a result of and requiring police attention to render not only the scene safe, but then to apprehend them and take them before a physician. One thing to note here as well is that all of the mental health calls for the city of Port Alberni as well as the outlying jurisdiction are included in here under the operations for city of Port Alberni specifically, simply because that is where we score the files to showcase where members are spending their time, and often it's at hospital. Here we move to rural Port Alberni. Noteworthy crime types here that are quite prevalent include assault offenses, domestic violence, theft under, impaired and immediate roadside prohibition offenses. Certainly, if at any time you have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll just continue to go through. Here in our First Nations communities, we have mental health calls not included here either, as it's captured under the City of Port Alberni grid. Indigenous police section in Port Alberni detachment is comprised of 4 members, and they deploy regularly to meet with band, council, and community members. Their work is mandated to be in those communities, and that's where they spend the bulk of their time. Here, I note that assault and domestic violence prevail as noteworthy crime types for this period. In this slide, I'm simply reiterating what I reported on last time, so I've kept the numbers the same in box 1 as well as the writing underneath. But what is interesting is that the crime rate simply counts the number of reported crimes, and they give each crime equal weight. The crime severity index assigns weights to different crimes based on severity, so more serious crimes have a greater impact on index. And what's noteworthy here is that the StatsCan Crime Severity Index data for 2024 shows an actual decrease right across some of our Port Alberni and some of our neighboring communities. This is a bit of a area of inquiry for me, and I'm continuing to work on it. I've tried to reach StatsCan a couple of times because I'd like to know where we're seeing the improvement or benefit to what's happening in our community, or if it's just simply complaint fatigue and we're not getting people reporting the crimes in the same way that they used to. I really don't know why we're seeing that decrease, because I can attest to, as I stand here, that there is no discernible change in Port Alberni's severity of crime. In fact, I'm concerned for just how violent it is here. In our forensic identification section, the statistics reflected here reflect every call that occurred and was attended within their jurisdiction. And you can see that they cover Port Alberni, both municipal and provincial, as well as Oceanside, municipal and provincial, Tofino, Ucluelet, and Qualicum Beach. In the main, these are attended by 1 or more of the 3 trained specialists that are posted to Port Alberni detachment. And from what I can gather, in this last quarter, 130 calls were solely for Port Alberni, just over 50 for Oceanside, approximately 10 for the Tofino Ucluelet area, 4 for Qualicum Beach, and so it's clear that the bulk of their work is in Port Alberni. Again, reflecting on forensic identification section, 31 municipal files in the first 2 quarters compared to 27 last year, so that's up from 4. 8 provincial files in the first 2 quarters compared to 5 last year. As I stated, 3 specialists are here in Port Alberni, but service not only Port Alberni, but the areas as seen, and they are generally busier this year than last. A homicide occurring in June, and I'll speak solely to that one for the present. A homicide occurring in June is arduous, challenging, very time-consuming, and it will be prioritized against other taskings as their work is pivotal to advancing and maintaining our investigational momentum on those high-stakes investigations. This I've changed around from last reporting. I wanted to articulate Crown submissions. Port Alberni's Crown submissions are second only to Nanaimo, sitting right now at 666. When comparing stats against neighboring detachments, we regularly come in as number 2, only to Nanaimo. In this second quarter, we've seen a 75.05% increase compared to last year, an increase of 123 cases from this time last year. Our year-to-date for nearby jurisdictions, as I state, was Nanaimo, 666, Comox is at 382, Duncan is at 228, and Campbell River appears to sit at 313. Sentencing values are derived from our 92 Port Alberni cases that actually got as far as sentencing, and does not include case resolutions by other means. And by that I mean diversion, restorative justice, or release to community. This meaningful sentencing simply reflects the strong and proven investigational efforts of our dedicated and often resource-constrained team to get the job done. So it's pretty impressive to look at the sentencing for last year, being at 86 years and 10 months for those sentences that are 30 days and over, and 70 years if only counting sentences that are 6 months and over. And that's what I have for you.
Thank you very much for the detailed report. Comments? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm wondering if we could just go back the one slide to Crown submissions. And I'm wondering if there could be an explanation of exactly what that's measuring. What does Crown submissions mean?
The number of cases that are being uploaded to Crown for charge assessment and approval.
So that's the number of cases that go to Crown, but not the number of cases that are actually approved by Crown?
That would be the number of cases that are submitted to Crown, yes. Whether they culminate in charge approval or not is not reflected there.
And the sentencing recorded for 2024, 2025, are any of those cases that were reflected in your statistics of charges? Or are those all cases that arose in an earlier year of time and would have been reflected in, say, 2020's?
I'm simply reflecting to it. It's the way it was submitted to me, and that is 92 Port Alberni cases culminated in the sentencing that was seen there.
So the answer is we don't know.
I'm saying that it was 92 Port Alberni cases for the year 2024 to 2025, not including the second quarter that resulted in those sentencing values.
But there's, Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering if there's any way to tell whether or not those are sentences. When I look through this and I see crime stats for this year, let's say there were so many of these crimes, and then I see sentencing stats, I'm wanting to know whether the sentencing stats and Crown submissions are related to the charge stats that we see in the previous slides, or whether they're related to cases or files that arose in earlier years, because I know it does take a number of years for a charge to be laid, go through the entire court process and end in sentencing. It generally doesn't happen in the same year.
In some instances, yes, of course. And that's something that I can bear down on and get some greater detail on for next reporting if that's what you wish.
Thanks. I think that would be really helpful, insightful to see. Additional questions? Okay. I think it was a very detailed report and really appreciate the hard work you guys are doing. We know that there's some real challenges and challenges everywhere. And certainly everyone has been, I think the community is growing more concerned as we start to hear some of the specific cases that are happening. So appreciate the hard work and difficult conditions that you're working under right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, would somebody like to move receipt? Motion to receive from Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item number 2, we have quarterly departmental reports, and our first one is Development Services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So myself and the Manager of Planning will do a brief summary of our Q2 departmental reports. We continue to work on the city's new official community plan and make progress on that, although we are having to balance that OCP work with our development application works and our day-to-day work. And although we have since hired a new planner one, during Q2, we were 2 planner staff short. So that was some additional challenges, but we continue to work on developing that draft OCP policy work to bring forward to council and the community. The city issued 54 building permits with a construction value of over $9 million through Q2. I will let council know that July and the first week of August have been much stronger for building permits, both construction value and new residential units. And I would also indicate that we have 30 building permits that are waiting to be picked up and paid for. So that means they've been fully processed. Applicants have been advised that the permits are ready to go, but they have not been picked up and or paid for at this stage. City staff approved a development permit at 4690 Elizabeth Street for the conversion of a residential dwelling to a medical clinic. And I can let you know that that medical clinic has since opened between now and then. Approved a development permit for the 4-unit townhouse project at 2856 4th Avenue for that. The approving officer issued 6 preliminary review letters and gave approval to 3 subdivisions through Q2 for subdivision applications. And I would just note that on the budget side of things, the Development Services Department, both operationally and consulting expenses, are under budget at the end of Q2. And again, that was somewhat primarily due to staff vacancies on that. And now Brian, our manager of planning, will just kind of give you a brief overview of some new development applications that were received in the second quarter.
So, Madam Mayor and Council, Q2 was fairly busy in terms of development application intake. So from April till the end of June, and this report reflects up until June 30th, 2025, we received 5 rezoning applications, 4 subdivision applications, 3 applications for development permits, another 3 applications for temporary use permits, applications for 2 official community plan amendments, and 1 application for a development variance permit, and staff are working through all of these applications. The city also reviewed and approved 49 business licenses, 3 of which were for short-term rentals in the community. And in the back of the report, we have also included a list of active development applications that we're working through, just to give you a sense of what's on our plate at the moment. Thank you.
And we'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the report. Are there questions from council? Okay, I have a couple. The amount of permits that are completed and waiting to be picked up, is that typical? It seems high.
It does seem a bit high that's why I mentioned it. Usually there are always a number waiting to be picked up, but that is more than I would say normal, although that's not something we track. The city is working to implement some new building permit software called Cloud Permit. And once that's up and running, that should enable us to probably keep track of these things a bit better. So I mentioned it because it seemed like a very high number to me, and I specifically went through to figure that out. But there's always a number waiting, but that is more than I would say is normal.
Thank you. I think it's a helpful number to be aware of, so appreciate you mentioning it. And my only other question was around the short-term rental business licenses. I know that we had a group of Airbnb homeowners who came to council and asked for us to implement a regulation so that they could get business licenses. Did we find a way to fit those into our existing bed and breakfast program, or is this new?
So the ones that are currently being considered are what fits under our current bed and breakfast program within our zoning. Council did task staff to come back with a report to council, and I think we're aiming for the fourth quarter or potentially an October meeting to bring that forward to council for your consideration and then potential direction on amendments that we may wish to make.
Great, thank you. Okay, no other questions from me and not seeing any others. So thank you for the report, and we can move on to the corporate services report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. From April to June, Corporate Services facilitated 6 regular council meetings, 3 committee of the whole meetings, 4 other committee meetings, and 1 public hearing. We tracked 149 council resolutions this quarter, bringing the 2025 total to 332 resolutions. 21 of those are in progress and 11 are still outstanding from previous years. Key accomplishments included adoption of 7 bylaws, approval of 2 new admin policies, and execution of 18 agreements. Our focus remains on updating bylaws and policies, resolving holdover agreements, and improving records management processes. Budget-wise, the department's on budget for Q2, fully staffed and prepared to meet service commitments. Looking ahead, we'll continue refining legislative processes, supporting council with strategic planning, and beginning to prepare for the October 26th general local election this fall. We also have communications and community safety presenting their portions of the report.
Thank you very much. Alicia Pusat, Manager of Communications for the City of Port Alberni, reporting out to you on Q2. So it's our job to work to deliver timely, transparent, and accessible information for the public in an effort to engage them in our work and to enhance trust within local government. In Q2, through our City Connect ads with Alberni Valley News, we produced 5 bi-weekly advertisements. It was the spring, so we made a concerted effort to highlight yard waste disposal, to address and promote the Broom Busters program, which I know council engaged in, and to remind residents of the property tax deadline. We also produced our City Connect newsletter, which goes out 3 times a year to approximately 7,000 households. This featured updates on the city's master planning efforts and promoted our e-signing or our e-billing sign up for My City. And then down to that, this is a register and win promotion that we're putting on with the finance department in an effort to gain more e-billing registrants. Each new registrant that we get saves some money in the long run, and to date, approximately $1,950 have been saved administratively through residents signing up for this e-billing program. For media relations and public information, we produced 8 official news releases and public statements. This included touching on topics like ratification of the collective agreement, signing of the SOMAS lands agreements, temporary closure of the Alberni Valley Multiplex, launch of the Celebrate Pre-A, and a few other highlights like the 2024 annual report. In our digital engagement, social media continues to be a key pillar of the city's communication strategy. For Q2, we created 108 Facebook posts featuring updates on playground installation, park closures, tree planting, public consultation, and community events. Total reach was 93,100, with more than 770,000 views and 8,500 content interactions. And we also, of course, promoted some of our activities through our Facebook events. That included the PA Kids Triathlon, Pride Disco roller skating, the community, Meet Your Community with the Welcome Wagon, and our Celebrate PA. The city continues to use Let's Connect PA for our online engagement tool. We have 9 active projects on that page right now with over 3,500 visits, and that averages out to be about 40 visits a day, and that's holding strong from quarter to quarter. The new page that was launched on there recently was our Stormwater and CSO Master Plan, and that's outlining the planning process and key community input. And then we also use a e-newsletter feature through that. In Q2, we did one for the SOMAS lands agreement, and that saw a 97.1% open rate, which is a very high rate of open, and it helps instill trust in that platform. We also partook in several community recognitions or moments. The Roger Creek Zips track with the Lions Club was one of the great events that we both held and attended, as well as the Alberni District Secondary School crosswalk painting put on by the social justice class in honor of residential school survivors. There were, of course, community-wide celebrations for National Indigenous Peoples Day. Our 2024 annual report was published and adopted by Council, and our transportation master plan engagement process was launched, and this was supported by calls to action to encourage people to participate through our online survey, which you would have received the information on that through the report by Dave. And that concludes my report. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? No? Thanks for the excellent overview of your activities. And we will move on to community safety and social development.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present the bylaw services, community policing, and social development Q2 reports. In bylaw services, as the main activities were participating in the nuisance abatement working group, encampments, property maintenance files, and traffic violation files. We will be in Q3 implementing the collections process with the collections agency that we've contracted with. And we are looking at total collections of about $88,000 to date. We're working on updating the traffic violation bylaw and possibly an amendment to the animal control bylaw just to make sure that the fines and the fees are all aligned. With community policing, we have 20 active volunteers who contributed 907 hours, concentrating on community events and meetings, Crime Watch, Distracted Driving, and Speed Watch. The community events, the volunteers participated in a training session with the RCMP E-Division and the Canadian Tire Jumpstart Day. Yeah, for Crime Watch, they did an active 28 patrols. They go out 2 to 3 teams per patrol with 4 to 6 volunteers, and they go out a number of times throughout the week. Distracted driving, they tracked 27,000 plus vehicles and noted a number of them using cell phones, which we report on. Speedwatch tracks almost 8,000 vehicles. I do have to make a correction that they noted 575 drivers and reported those up. And to date, there's been about 47 warning letters sent. For social development, we participated in a number of community events, meetings with the Community Action Team. We facilitated and coordinated the Community of Care Coalition meeting, which we reported to you back in July. We also facilitate on a weekly basis the situation table, resulting in 6 referrals to the table and reducing the risk level of 2 individuals as a result of that. One of our tangibles was to coordinate the outreach team resource list for distribution to the coalition members. In Q3 and Q4, we'll be looking at developing a framework for community safety and well-being strategy. For our budget, we are largely on track. The bylaw enforcement budget does include contract services that will be contracted out or transferred out to property taxes because it's captured in the bylaw budget. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from this report? No questions. Thank you very much for the thorough report.
Thank you.
All right. That's our last report for the day. Would somebody like to move receipt? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. On to bylaws. Item number 1, fees and charges amendment bylaw number 5125-1, 2025, and this is a final adoption. Councillor Mealy, would you like to read it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move that fees and charges amendment bylaw number 5125-1, 2025 be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer and numbered 5125-1.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Any comments? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a fees and charges bylaw that was previously, a long time ago, approved after much discussion and somehow has come back again and gone around the mulberry bush a number of times. And the change to it now is essentially defeating the entire bylaw that we spent so much time on, in my opinion, because it includes the clause that allows entering into contracts other than for fees and charges other than those set out in the bylaw, without any structure or paradigm or checklist or indication of how those contracts should be entered into. It's essentially a carte blanche to ignore the bylaw that council and administration put so much work into creating, to ignore the purpose of the bylaw being to have market rates that are equally and fairly applicable to all. And it essentially subverts the whole process to allow for arbitrary decision-making, which is, in my opinion, contrary to the issue of administrative law and therefore contrary to the business of this council. So given that and that there are other options to pursue the same outcome, those would include policies that clearly set out what the process for arriving at those contracts are, what types of situations that's allowed in, as opposed to anything under the sun, or even enacting a purposely drafted bylaw that confronts the issue of accessibility and inclusion amongst the population of Port Alberni. Now, that accessibility and inclusion is a very important thing, and we should absolutely be pursuing that and pursuing it, again, on a fair and equitable basis that can be equally applied to all members of the Port Alberni population and understood by all of them, and not just having to guess at, will council prefer this this request to give us a break, or will council not prefer this request to give us a break, not knowing at all what those decisions would be based upon. So I see this as being, at one time, very good legislation that has now been absolutely subverted into legislation that I would be amazed anyone should pass, although I understand that people may be supporting it because of the outcome, the effect that it might have. I think that effect is too great of a danger, and that we should continue with the process that we've already entered into and are partway through, being the revision of the HART program and the CIP program to create those well-defined opportunities to make our programs accessible to those that might be otherwise excluded by the current fees and charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patola. Other comments? Okay, seeing none, motion is moved and seconded. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. Item number 2, development application and OCP and zoning bylaw amendments for 6123 and 6151 Russell Place.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this report today is to consider a revised development concept for proposed seniors housing at Rainbow Gardens and for Council to direct administration on how to proceed. On June 23rd, Council directed administration to work with the applicant to determine lower density options for the development on this property at 1623 and 6151 Russell Place. And the applicant has provided revised designs to staff, and we've put them on the agenda for you here today. So the applicants have reduced the number of units in the development from 31 to 35, and they have lowered the number of building stories from 3 stories to 2 stories. The density of the development remains comparable to the original design, but they've made changes to the building massing and forming character that may be perceived differently by the surrounding neighborhood. They've also adopted a design style that is similar to townhouses, with a roof line character that's similar to the surrounding neighborhood, but it is still an apartment building. If council supports the revised designs, they can direct staff to proceed with the required bylaw amendments. Council could also direct staff to work further with the applicant, or council could consider third reading of the zoning bylaw, which is still sitting at second reading. And I'd be happy to answer any questions council has. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from council? Councillor Solda.
So just a quick question. So I believe the parking spaces have been downsized a bit. Will that work for this particular build?
Through the mayor to Councillor Solda, that's correct. So with the reduction in the number of units, the parking requirement has also been reduced accordingly. And that was done in order to create a little bit more open space on the property. Because the building itself, when the building height is lowered, then the footprint expanded. So they tried to find as much space where they could.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Dame and then Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think it's just worth noting that it's appreciated that, we have an echo problem again. I'll just wait a moment. Test. Okay. Nope. Hello? Thanks. Yeah, just the comment that I appreciate them coming back with something new for us to consider, and I would support staff proceeding with this current iteration.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate that. And yes, and I'd like to echo Councillor Dame's comments to the proponent for coming back with this. Just to clarify, if we went to proceeding with the required OCP and zoning amendments, that we would still have another public hearing. Is that correct? Through you, Madam Mayor, to staff? For everybody at home, yes is the answer. Sorry.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Seeing none, Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move that council direct staff to proceed with the required OCP and zoning bylaw amendments as per the revised development plan submitted for 6151 Russell Place, Soayos Rainbow Garden.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Before we vote on this, I do just want to say that regardless of how this development moves forward, I do think that and I know we're waiting on master plans, but I do think that we need to circle back sooner rather than later to the park discussion in this neighborhood. I think that, a new application obviously brought up, the topic again, but it's a topic that really shouldn't have been left for as long as it has been. Regardless of where that park ends up going, there are lots of options. I think that this neighborhood has been hit disproportionately hard with the loss of 3 parks in the very near vicinity. So, there was a promise long ago that a park would be constructed. I don't think that that needs to have anything to do with this development or with the applicants. I think this is a city issue that needs to move forward. But I would just say that regardless of whether we move forward with this application, after a public hearing or not, we need to get some options for a park and look at what the master plan said and likely prioritize that space, in my opinion, just because of the changes that have happened there. Okay, not seeing any other comments on the motion. All in favor? Carried, none opposed. And item G, on to correspondence for action. We have one item from the Alberni District Fall Fair Association, Annual Fall Fair and Parade. It's a very exciting item. I'll go to Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council authorize the Alberni District Fall Fair Association access to city streets on Saturday, September the 6th, 2025, from 11 a.m. to approximately 12 p.m. for the purpose of a parade from 12th Avenue along Bird Street, along 10th Avenue to Alderwood Street, subject to the notification of emergency services and BC Transit, consultation with all affected businesses and residents, provision of a traffic safety plan completed by a certified professional, including qualified traffic control personnel as required, provision of standard liability insurance in the amount of $5 million minimum, and review by event organizers of the report of the Study Commission of Inquiry into Community Event Safety dated June 26, 2025.
Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no comments on this, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And on to item number 2, we have Royal Canadian Legion, Alberni Valley Branch 293, 100th anniversary. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move the council authorize the Royal Canadian Legion Alberni Valley Branch 293 access to city streets on Saturday, May 30th, 2026 for the 100th anniversary parade from 10th Avenue and Rogers Street through Gertrude Street to Burke Street, ending at the Royal Canadian Legion Hall, subject to the notification of emergency services and BC Transit, consultation with all affected businesses and residents, provision of a traffic safety plan completed by a certified professional, including qualified traffic control personnel as required, provision of standard liability insurance, the amount of $5 million minimum, and review by event organizers of the report of the Study Commission of Inquiry into Community Event Safety dated June 26, 2025.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. And I just want to say how much I appreciate the promptness of the Legion on this. This event is not until May next year. We rarely get groups planning that far ahead, and it's extremely helpful to the city because we are able to make sure that proper plans are in place and we have the opportunity to support where needed. So just want to recognize that good work there. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And on to item number 3, Alberni Valley Community Forest Corporation and community donations. We'll go to Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move that council support the recommendation from the Alberni Valley Community Forest Corporation to provide a donation to the Black Lambs Rugby organization in the amount of $5,000 towards the purchase of equipment. Would you like to do it separately, Madam Mayor? Would you all at once? Do them all together. Sure. I'd love to, Madam Mayor. B, that council support the recommendations from the Alberni Valley Community Forest Corporation to provide a donation to the 8th Avenue Learning Center and USMA Child and Family Services in the amount of $2,500 to support the Food Sustainability and Summer Garden Program, and that council support the recommendations from the Alberni Valley Community Forest Corporation to provide a donation to the PA Picklers together with the Sunshine Club in the amount of $2,500 to support pickleball facilities and equipment.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Is everyone on council happy voting on them together, or does anyone want to sever? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to sever, but I would like to move an amendment, which would be adding a final encompassing clause that reads, with the provision that these organizations will not have access to any CIP funding during the same financial year.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Seconded by Councillor Dame. Mike, I'm wondering if you could speak to if we have a policy on double dipping within the CIP and community forest or not?
Thanks for the question through the chair. I believe we do for the CIP program, but I'm not sure for the community forest program, but in the CIP we do.
Thank you. Okay, any comments on the amendment? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, double dipping is one term for it. A more familiar term to me is stacking, and it's simply a principle carried across all levels of senior government in any event, that once funds are provided for a certain project, you can't go back to the same donor and ask for more funds for that project because you didn't get enough first time around. And it ensures that funding is widely diversified across the spectrum of all of those that have needs. In this case, it's simply because of the organization between the community forest that determines their own donation recipients with the approval of council, and the CIP fund, which operates separately. There's a potential for overlap there, even though really all of these funds are coming from the same donor. And that's the only point that I'm trying to ensure here is that we don't allow that stacking process and ensure that the CIP funds we do have available, limited as they are, go to as many good sources as possible.
Thank you. I think great point, and I will let everyone know just for awareness that at the regional district, their grant and aid process does have a formal no double dipping policy. So the city does regularly exclude ourselves from funding some of those specific requests that come in, as we have already funded through grant or through community investment program or other programs. So I think this is in line with that, trying to ensure that the funds go out as widely as possible. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on the amendment. So I guess I'd like to know, first of all, I totally understand Councillor Patola and no double dipping, and I totally understand that. I guess what I'd like to know first is, does the Rugby Club, 8th Avenue Learning, USMA Children's Services, or PA Picklers with the Sunshine Club part of our CIP program, or do they receive funds already?
Thanks for the question. I would have to look into all years past. I know that we receive applications in October before, and then the committee sits to review. So I'm not sure if any of these have in past, but I could do a review if council wishes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow that up, so I guess what I'm looking at is the other side of the coin is groups who may get CIP or holding, and I don't see this here, perhaps not, but if they have a one-off, say the rugby club has an organization or an event they're holding this year, and they received extra funds because they asked for it, because they're bringing in teams and whatever. And I'm just using that as an example. I would hate for someone in the future next year who rely on CIP but need a little bit more, and the community forest is going to allow that so they can have a special event to promote our community or whatever, and not have the ability to get that. So, but again, I understand and I agree with Councilor Patola, no double dipping. That's right. But I would hate for a blanket amendment now to not allow a group who wants to do something more for our community not have that funds available.
I think that's a good point. My understanding is it's for these three specifically only. We're not creating a policy. Additionally, it would only be for the same year in which the funds are being given out. I think it's important to note also that these amounts, $2,500, and $5,000, are significantly larger than the cash contributions that we typically see through CIP. And so if somebody is receiving an amount here, the most common amount we give out through CIP is $500. So I think these are notably larger and therefore of significant benefit for groups that are able to pursue and receive these. And if there is a disadvantage from being excluded from CIP for the same year, I think there's still likely a strong net benefit just because of the amounts. Something we probably want to consider a policy on for the future, but I think for catching them today, it makes a lot of sense. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, then on the amendment, all in favor? Carried. Any opposed? None opposed. And on the motion as amended, all in favor? Motion carried, none opposed. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Just one more before the community forest is off the table. Just we went to the AGM, or I went to the AGM earlier this year, and they did talk about giving us a tour. So just want to once again mention that in open council that for some of us that may want to take the tour of the community forest, Mr. Sears, if you're listening, we could try to set something up.
Thank you. And since we are talking about the community forest, I think it is important to recognize that Mr. Sear has actually stepped down as chair, provided us his notice, Jim Sears. And I want to just, we have written a letter that I've just signed, but I want to just, on behalf of council, extend our thanks to Jim for all of the work that he has done as chair of the community forest. I believe he's been chair every year since it was created in probably 2013, maybe 2012. So he's put a really significant amount of effort and time into that corporation that has provided the city with millions of dollars in dividends. A lot of volunteer time goes into that. And not only the money that's been received by the city, but they've done a fantastic job of creating park spaces and trails for community residents to enjoy as well. So definitely on behalf of council, we really appreciate all the work that Jim has put into the community, or to the community forest. And it will be, he will be a hard person to replace. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I must have missed that, and I apologize to Mr. Sears for all that's been going on lately. So, but yeah, I echo your comments, and I'm hoping the next person within the community forest will still take us on a tour.
I'm sure they will. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, there's no doubt a fantastic job has been done, and we're certainly benefiting from it greatly. So not to take away from that at all, and this is simply because I don't know, so I don't want to request a report or anything, but I'm just wondering if there is a policy or a written set out structure for the community donations from the community forest. I'm simply not aware of it, but there's no reason I would be. If there's a public advertisement for applications, and if there's a review process that is set out in a policy somewhere.
Thank you. I don't believe there is a formal policy. However, there were two separate council motions that gave direction for this to be able to happen. Originally, council directed several years ago that the $10,000 would be facilitated through CIP, and the board members would get to sit and sort of decide that, but decide the recipients, but through the CIP process. Separate from that, they came back to us and said it was just sort of too onerous to go through the whole CIP process, where it was not really necessarily relevant to the process they were going through. They came back and asked if they could work outside of it, and council approved that. My guess would be roughly 3 years ago. So there were council processes that were gone through, but I don't think we actually created a formal policy for those funds. However, they are required to come back to council for council to approve. They do advertise, but I don't know the standard to which they advertise, or if it's more word of mouth and minimal advertising. Definitely something we could create a policy on in the future. And I think sort of a bit more background there is they wanted a significantly larger amount per year to donate to community organizations. They also used to be significantly more involved in determining where the dividends would go. Council sort of took more of the approach that the dividends were just city budget funds, obviously with restrictions through our bylaw there, but that we didn't need to have an outside organization being necessarily involved in where those dividends were applied, as they were sort of the funds of the taxpayers, but that we would work with them on a smaller donation fund. So that's how we arrived at it, and we can certainly work on a policy in the future if anyone wants to make a motion. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no doubt that the activities are properly authorized by council whatsoever. My only concern is that the same standards are applied. These are, irrespective of the fact they're coming from the Community Forest Corporation, they're still public funds. And so it's just a question of ensuring that that one arm of the city is acting in the same way as the other arms of the city, as it were. So the same standards are being followed. So I think perhaps I'll just briefly state that I will make a notice of motion. I will bring a motion in subsequent meetings with regards to establishing a policy for the Community Forest Corporation as to the community donations, and we'll have to see what the motion says, because of course we can't tell them what to do, but we can sort of suggest what they should do. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. I think we passed that. Moving on, item number 4, Uptown Merchants Association Grassroots Uptown Market.
A point of order, I'm a member of the Uptown Merchants Association, so I'm
I
going to
will
duck out.
wait for you to leave the room then. Thank you. All right, I will go to Councillor Mealy to read this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the council authorize the Uptown Merchants Association access to city streets on Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, from 3rd Avenue between Argyle Street and Mars Street from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. for the purpose of the Grassroots Uptown Market. Subject to the notification of emergency services in BC Transit, consultation with all affected businesses and residents, provision of a traffic safety plan completed by a certified professional, including qualified traffic control personnel as required, provision of standard liability insurance in the amount of $5 million minimum, review by event organizers of the report of the Study Commission of Inquiry into Community Event Safety dated June 26th, 2025.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Any comments or discussion? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Somebody like to get Councillor Dame? Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 5, Comox Valley Airport Commission. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council direct staff to prepare a letter of support for the Comox Valley Airport Commission for their submission to the Canada Border Services Agency for a change in their airport of entry designation of AOE 160 to AOE 220 for winter charter operations.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Comments on this? Councillor Mealy?
Nope, not really comment, Madam Mayor. We're just supporting the Comox Valley Airport.
I was more just curious, I guess, why it came to us, but regional airport certainly has value. We just haven't really seen anything from them. So, yeah, good to be included. All right, not seeing any other comments on the motion. All in favor? Carried, none opposed. And on to proclamations. We have one item today, and that is the Port Alberni Toy Run, a letter received August 5th, 2025, providing information regarding the toy run and requesting a proclamation. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move that council support the Port Alberni Toy Run Association's activities taking place on September 13th and 14th, 2025, subject to the notification of emergency services in BC Transit, consultation with all affected businesses and residents, provision of a traffic safety plan completed by a certified professional, including qualified traffic control personnel as required, provision of a standard liability insurance in the amount of $5 million minimum, review by event organizers of the report of the Study Commission of Inquiry into Community Event Safety dated June 26, 2025, and receipt of a special event permit from the LCRB, and further that council on behalf of the Port Alberni Toy Run proclaims September 8th to 14th, 2025 as Port Alberni Toy Run Week in Port Alberni.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, in the letter that they sent to, they asked for the skate area, and I'm assuming they have their ticket sales or something like that held there. Is that included in this? Or is that a separate item altogether?
Yeah, thanks for the question. The Toy Run historically, before I believe last year, used the skate shop for serving their liquor out of. And last year, the administration had moved away from allowing that. I believe last year was the first year. I might be wrong on that. It might have been the previous year too. But and that's not just for the toy run. It's for anybody using that for service out besides for the skates. So I did have staff back at the time when that happened, and it was from just stuff being left in there. I don't think there was any damage, but there was just some issues with people using the skate shop area for a bar or a service area. So administration at the time had moved away from it. If council wishes, we could look at it as a leasable space, and we could lease that space out and maybe ask for a damage deposit or something else to make sure that there's nothing spilt or other damages. But I haven't done a huge look into that at this time, but I have inquired again with staff.
So, Madam Mayor, I've known for years that they've used the skate shop. I didn't realize there was some little issues on there. Whenever I volunteered in the past, that's where we were. And it just contains the alcohol and the sales and everything. I always thought it was a good thing for them to use. Maybe it's part of it or something like that, that we do look into it if we can board it off or do something. But it just protects all and puts everything behind the shelf for the liquor. Anyways, those are my comments. Thank you.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Solder, for bringing that up. Yeah, I would be in favor of allowing to use escape shop again and damage deposit, or if there's any issues, we charge them 4 hours of clean or anything like that. Councillor Solder has mentioned it's been used in the past, and it's a good way to cut off the alcohol and all that. So I'd be in favor of that. But yeah, like a damage deposit or something to ensure that it's cleaned up afterwards. If that's the concern on why we're not using it, I'm pretty sure that the toy run would be amendable to that.
Thank you. I think that was a staff level decision to not allow it. If council wants to look for a mechanism to allow it, I would encourage us to, give direction to staff today that we want them to do it if possible, to look at options. However, I do think that from my perspective, if we open this up to the toy run, then we have to open it up to all groups. And when staff is expressing that there's been issues in the past and therefore has made a change, I don't personally really feel like I have enough knowledge to override that decision, and I think it's largely operational. So I would just say that I also would love to see them be able to use it if there's a mechanism to do that where staff feels comfortable making the decision and comfortable, recognizing that their concerns are satisfied, but without knowing fully what the concerns are. I'm not sure it's something I really want to give direction on. Mike, I'm not sure if this is something that you can look into, just take away and look to facilitate if, at your level and working with the staff in the department, if you feel you can find a way to make it happen in a way that satisfies whatever the concerns are.
Yeah, through the chair, I can. It is just my thoughts about if the concerns that I've heard are more about the state that it's left in sometimes. And again, it's not just the toy run. It has been used for multiple organizations. So I'm not trying to say that the toy run has ever done anything bad. I don't know that for sure. So I will work with administration and see what can be done there. I think it's clear that council would like me to look at that, so I can do that.
Thank you. Okay, we've got the motion moved and seconded. Not seeing any other comments. On the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And on to correspondence for information. I will go to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This correspondence summary includes updates from the Ministry of Forests on the Heritage Conservation Act Transformation Project, our MLA Josie Osborne, the City of Langley, and Tishanut First Nation, as well as the Island Coastal Economic Trust. These items are provided for council's information.
Thank you. Any items of correspondence councillors would like to speak to? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move receipt? Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And on to reports from in camera. I will go to our corporate officer to read those.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council is releasing for public information a 3-year lease to the Vancouver Island Regional Library at Echo 67 Community Centre, a 5-year extension of the railway operation and maintenance agreement with the WVIIHS, a 3-day license of occupation for the Alberni Valley Drag Racing Association on the SOMAS lands, and a lease for Spirit Square for West Coast Kids Reuse It.
Thank you. On to council reports. Are there any items councillors would like to highlight from council or regional district reports? Okay, seeing none, on to new business. Item number 1, McLean Mill Elevator decommissioning, and this was a recommendation from the committee of the whole meeting. I will go to Councillor Solda. Would you like to read this one?
Madam Mayor, I move that the council direct administration to decommission the elevator located at the McLean's Mill National Historic Site.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And item number 2, financial planning policy, a recommendation from the July 21st, 2025 COW meeting. Councillor Dane.
Move that council approve financial planning policy number 3002-10.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dame, seconded by Councillor Patola. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Item number 3, we have development application, temporary use permit for 5104 River Road. Now we'll go to our manager of planning.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. For consideration today is temporary use permit 2501 that would enable the use of shipping containers at Klutzy Haven Marina for a small commercial market. The project is a result of the CD initiative, that stands for Community Economic Development Initiative, which facilitates partnerships between municipalities and First Nations on mutually beneficial economic development. So the temporary use permit would authorize for up to 3 years the use of 4 shipping containers for commercial buildings at 5104 River Road, and staff are recommending that this be approved by council. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mealy, would you like to read this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move that council authorize the Director of Corporate Services to sign a 3-year temporary use permit number 25-01 to enable up to 4 shipping containers to be used as commercial buildings on the property at 5104 River Road.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Comments? Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, we're just kind of curious to know, do we have an idea when they're going to be open, and are they rented? And if they're not rented, if somebody's interested, who do they contact?
Great question. CAO.
Thanks for the questions. No, they aren't rented yet. So we're still working with the Port Authority to see if we will move forward with an agreement with the Port Authority or look at a different way of renting out the CCANs. The first step was the temporary use permit, getting them in place. There's still some work on site that has to be done too, to make the gravel surface more accessible. So there is some funds that we still have, and we want to finish it off proper before we open it to the public. And then the other part is we do have an artist, Gord Dick, that will be doing some Indigenous art on the cans as well, and that's going to be starting shortly, hopefully. So there is still quite a bit of work to be happening. I believe that as this project continued this summer, we realized that we had missed the summer season. So now we are just making sure we have it done and ready for the next summer season. Although as soon as they are available to rent, we will let everybody know where they can go to rent the cans. I know there has been some interest that has come in through the city and also to the Port Authority about these.
Madam Mayor, through to the CAO, could you just explain that if somebody's interested in renting it, they're not just getting an empty shell, like there's power, et cetera, in these CCANs?
Sure, the CCANs are a base model. So if somebody was to put large cooking utensils and stuff, there would be modifications that would be needed. They do have water, sewer, and power to 3 of the module, or 3 of them CCANs are possible CCANs. The larger CCAN is more of a retail space. It does have power, but no water and sewer. Also, additionally, we made several more hookups for food trucks to make sure that people that have pre-existing areas can also lease spaces down at the Harbour Quay, like the Port Authority has already worked on down there, and there are several well-established food trucks down there.
I just want people to be really clear. And also, it opens up, so if it became like a food truck, it would open up a window and people can go in, and there's some really good, if somebody's really interested in renting, there's some really good spaces there.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to look at if that makes sense for your business, and it'll have a covered area out front. There's also power brought to the area. Also, the Port Authority had built another type of structure that we're using as a stage, and we had brought power over to the stage, so now we can have events, etc. out there. I think the SETI program really wanted this to be a community gathering space and recognize how we're better together. And I think this will be the start of something that brings everybody together in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've got that motion moved and seconded. Seeing no more comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Motion carried, none opposed. Item number 4, we've got fees and charges bylaw amendment, commercial for-profit rental rates.
Thanks, and through the chair. We were wondering who was going to actually talk to the fees and charges today because we we have lost some very key staff over the last little bit, and we wish them the best at their new endeavors. But it does leave some gaps in our administration currently. So I will be presenting. Myself and Sarah, our corporate officer, had worked on this alongside of Sean, and we thank him for all his work on the fees and charges. So this comes from a council resolution that asked us to look at commercial rates and what other communities do. And most, it's for a commercial venture, it's usually twice the fee for rental of a space. But in pursuing that, we also got into definitions. And all of the communities had very different recommendations depending on the definitions of their definitions. And that went into a whole bunch of definitions that we decided to change. And one thing that we're asking council to consider today is what means local. Is it if you reside in Port Alberni, or is it the Alberni Valley? And so we've made some recommendations in the definitions in the report to define that, because there is differences in rates for lots of communities that don't have regional parks, rec, and culture services through the regional district. So Port Alberni is one of those. So usually there is a staggered rate structure. Currently we do have a staggered rate structure, but it doesn't have really clear definitions. So it's used not to the fullest ability and does cause some friction between staff and different groups. So clarifying this for the public and administration will be key in moving this forward. Also in this, we started peeling back the layers. So if a team that is a sports team in Alberni Valley, how much percentage of the team makes them local or not local? So we have also made that for council to consider. Some areas do go if there is anybody from outside the region. Some do up to 50%. So we've recommended if the organization has 50% of the group or more, is from outside the valley, then they're charged the outside rate from the outer side. If it's 50% and less, then we've recommended to include that as a local group. Also for drop-in fees, we've also considered it to be the Alberni Valley, if you look at the recommendations in there. So that's just a high level of some of the changes that staff are recommending at this time. This is just to see if council wants us to pursue this, add in the commercial rates and how that affects our fee schedules. And then also we are clarifying that our tables, chairs, when it was put through the original bylaw that was adopted earlier tonight, that was for a 24-hour period. So we've broken it down to what the hourly rate is. So people aren't confused. I know some of the service groups were quite concerned when they saw the rates for a table per hour, it was going to be quite costly. So it was based on a 24-hour period. So we're clarifying that in this amendment too. So if council would like us to move forward as our recommendations are, we can proceed and then bring a bylaw back in probably October for council to consider. Or if you'd like us to do changes or not move forward at all, we can do any of the above. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions before we read the motion? Councillor Mealy.
Just not so much a question, just a clarification for everybody at home. And thank you very much to staff for the report. And everything that has changed is highlighted in yellow, pages 146 to 155 on the agenda today. So if anyone wants to read that at home, they can.
Absolutely. And if you'd like to read the motion, you're welcome to.
I will, Madam Mayor. I move that Council direct administration to bring forward an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw number 5125/2025 to reflect amendments as noted in the staff report dated July 14th, 2025 and outlined in Table 1, Schedule K, proposed revisions.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. Any comments? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried, none opposed. All right, and on to Parks Caretaker Residence Infrastructure. And we will have Councillor Patola recuse himself. Go ahead.
I recuse myself as I am a volunteer with the organization that may be directly implicated in this.
Thank you. All right, and we've got our manager of facilities.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. At the December 9th, 2024 Committee of the Whole, Council received a report regarding the caretaker residences. This report detailed the condition of the caretaker residences and sought Council direction on the level of service. The appendices to that report outlined a detailed breakdown of the repair requirements for each caretaker residence, inclusive of cost estimates, age, and notes regarding the lifespan of the asset. At the regular meeting on January 13th, 2025, Council directed administration that no further investments be made to the caretaker residence at Roger Creek Park, Russell Park, Williamson Park, Blair Park, Klitza Park, and Paper Mill Dam Park, while ensuring that washrooms continue to be maintained, routine maintenance on the buildings is carried out, and that any requests for improvements are brought to Council for approval. Today, staff would like to bring some items for Council approval, specifically the oil tanks at Paper Mill Dam and Blair Park are past their useful age of life, and as well the hot water tank at Paper Mill Dam. There are no laws that specify the age. However, there are best practices for insurance, especially given the oil tanks are located near bodies of water. So with that, we're looking for Council to amend the City of Port Alberni 2025 to 2029 financial plan bylaw number 5123-2025 to allocate $8,700 in the 2026 capital budget for the replacement of the hot water tank and oil tanks at Paper Mill Dam caretaker residence. That Council amend the City of Port Alberni 2025-2029 financial plan bylaw number 5123-2025 to allocate $6,500 in the 2026 capital budget for the replacement of the oil tank at the Blair Park caretaker residence, and that Council amend the City of Port Alberni 2025-2029 financial plan to allocate $2,200 in subsequent years to budget for the replacement of hot water tanks at the caretaker residence in Klitza, Williamson Park, and Russell Field. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the report. Are there questions from Council? Okay, Councillor Verbrugge, would you like to read the first motion?
Sorry. That Council amend the City of Port Alberni 2025-2029 financial plan bylaw number 5123-5025 to allocate $8,700 in the 2026 capital budget for the replacement of the hot water tank, $2,200, and oil tank, $6,500 at the Paper Mill Dam Park caretaker residence.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Verbrugge, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any discussion on this one? Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question. The hot water tank, 2,200, is that what they're going at nowadays? I mean, I know we have to replace them and for insurance purposes, because I've had to replace all mine, but is that what they are? Oh, darn. Okay.
Councillor Dame.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering if we were to, say, bump the oil tank replacement to the 2028 budget year, if there's like concern of like immediate failure, or if this is just sort of best practice, as was mentioned.
Thank you for the question. The conditions, they seem okay. There's no signs of failure, but given that they are past recommended lifespan, if they should fail, it may null our insurance.
Thank you. Okay. Not seeing any other comments on the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, everyone. And Councillor Verbrugge, if you want to read the next one.
That Council amend the City of Port Alberni 2025-2028 financial plan bylaw number 5123-5025 to allocate $6,500 in the 2026 capital budget for the replacement of oil tank at Blair Park caretaker residence.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Verbrugge, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any discussion? Seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried. None opposed. And if you want to read the final one.
That Council amend the City of Port Alberni 2025-2029 financial plan bylaw number 5123-2025 to allocate $2,200 in the 2027, 2028, and 2029 capital budget for the replacement of hot water tanks at the caretaker residences at Klitzer Park, Williamson Park, and Russell Field.
Wonderful. Moved by Councillor Verbrugge, seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no additional comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you, everyone, and thanks, Rob, for the reports.
Thank you.
Moving on to our late items, we will go to Councillor Solda for Johnson Road. Oh, sorry, yes, we got to bring back Councillor Patola. Councillor Solda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I'm going to put a motion on the floor, and then we'll go with that. My motion is that we write a letter to the Ministry of Transportation regarding to change their current standards to support the installation of a pedestrian activated crosswalk on Johnson Road. And
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Go ahead, Councillor Solda.
So I'll explain. Okay, so where the bump outs are on Johnson Road and Adelaide Street, when you drive there, you see the bump outs with no problem. But when there's about all the cars backed up right up to the school, past the tracks, you can't see anybody still crossing on the crosswalk. The whole idea of the bump outs was to help mitigate accidents that were happening there and everything like this. And the other day, a lady was walking by through the cars and she was waving to everybody to stop because she wanted to cross the crosswalk. And I still think that's an accident to happen and we need to ask them to put a light. When I first saw the dig, everybody saw and was involved in that, the bump outs going in and people complained about the digging and everything like that. And then when I thought of the overhang, I went, oh, good, at least they're putting some lights up there. Everybody thought there was going to be lights because just the way those two signs are hanging up above the streets. And then we get a letter confirming that there isn't, we got a reply from Modi that they have confirmed they will not be activating a flashing light on the highway on Johnson and Adelaide. Their current standard is to have just light the walk symbol and does not allow an activated light. Well, I still think we have a hazard there and it's going to happen. Someone else is going to get injured. It's not stopping anybody. And eventually we're going to see another bump out and I'm kind of curious to know, a lockdown, we're going to see the same thing happen. So I would like to see the current standards change and anybody interested, there's a ACRD transportation meeting at 10 o'clock. I will be voicing that concern to the transportation there too, but I think the city needs to write a strong letter to the ministry. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. I couldn't agree more. While Johnston Road may be technically a highway, it is not a highway to our community. It is a part of our community. It is a community road and it needs to be treated that way and it needs to have different standards than a highway. The pedestrian activated lights that we have added in our community have, I think, drastically increased pedestrian safety. And while I don't think this is at all an issue of the bump outs, and I want to be clear about that, what the bump outs have done, I would say, is increased the amount of pedestrians using that crosswalk because it is safer. However, the overall issue of Johnston Road, the speeds on Johnston Road, the width of Johnston Road have still, not been addressed, I would say, in a sufficient way. So I think that this is really important, recognizing that it is a technical highway, but we can't consider it a highway for the standards in which it goes through our community. It just doesn't make sense. It is a community road. It is frequently crossed. It's a commercial district and it needs to be treated like that. So full support, and I would love to see more bump outs. There are some very significant concerning areas on Lower Johnson Road that we have expressed to the ministry already. I think that these bump outs were a really great start for just, one of the intersections. They do make a drastic improvement to the visibility of pedestrians going there to cross, but it just is not enough. And I think we will continue to have incidents if we don't see further improvement. So appreciate you bringing this forward. I'll go to Councillor Solda and then to Councillor Mealy.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The bump outs look great and it does funnel the traffic and it does slow it down. And other people have said, well, why don't they just take the speed limit down too if they're not going to do anything? make it slower, you know, because some people just drive pretty fast down coming down the hill and that. So I totally agree with that, and I don't mean anything harm about the bump outs, because I do think they're there for a good reason.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So first of all, thank you to Mike and city staff for bringing this to the Ministry of Transportation after I brought it at the last meeting. I frankly don't want any more of the ministries to work if they're not going to do it fully. I have a hard time believing of the policy because at Ian Avenue, Princess, and Southgate, there are flashing pedestrian lights, and that's what I thought we were going to get. And then when you go through it, that's not what we get. And I would even dare to say that it's even more dangerous on Lower Johnson than it is that area, not taking away from the pedestrians in the area up there. So I would love to have that conversation. And I apologize, Councillor Solt, I can't make the meeting tomorrow, so I appreciate you going there and bringing this forward there as well, the Transportation Committee meeting. But I just have a real big problem if this is how it's going to be done at the other intersections. It's other than the bump outs, and we talk about those, and that is great, and those things are right. We can see the people, but without those pedestrian controlled crosswalk lights to allow those people to cross safely, we're just going to have more problems. And like you said, you've got people trying to cross and wave people down, and people are doing 80 through there who are trying to go to the West Coast and back. It's going to be a problem. So thank you, Councillor Solter, for bringing this up. Thank you for bringing this up tomorrow as well. And I really appreciate staff for getting clarification as well, because again, if they're not going to do it right, then don't do it at all. Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, people are still crossing 4 busy lanes of traffic. Thank goodness they're not crossing the effective, width of 6 anymore with the bump outs, but it is a very busy area. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of traffic, and I mean, I've been through there myself and seen a pedestrian and been quite surprised by just how little visibility there was with so much going on. So I think this is a really important step to advocate for. Councillor Verbrugge.
Thank you, Mary. Mary. I agree with Councillor Charles. There's no continuity. There's some lights are blinking, or some crosswalks are blinking. Some are red lights upstairs. There's no continuity. The other day I was coming down Redford, a little off subject here, but and the blinking lights by the McDonald's. And I'm driving down, and all of a sudden I see 2 orange lights up above. And I'm looking at the orange lights. What are those for? And I look down, and I'm coming across a crosswalk. Nobody's in the crosswalk, but what was that? And I still question, I don't drive that very often, but what was that? And I think that should have been blinking lights also.
Yeah, thank you. I think the more consistency there can be in our traffic signals, obviously, the better. But definitely, I mean, we know and we've identified in this community that that we have a pedestrian and cyclist safety issue. The city has put a lot of weight into looking to make improvements to that over the last few years. And I don't want to disregard that this is an improvement from the province as well. And I want to recognize that. I am grateful that they made this investment in the intersection. They have improved it for safety, but it just needs to go a step further. Yeah, I was quite surprised, like you, Councillor Mealy, that we didn't end up with a pedestrian activated light there. So I think it's an excellent point about Ian and further up. And so hopefully we can push, and either there's a standard that needs to be changed or maybe a difference in how it's being applied. Yeah, so we'll start with the letter, and we'll start with sending Councillor Solda to have a conversation. We'll see where we get. All right, on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And on to item number 7, Councillor Solda, BC Ferries.
So my motion, Madam Mayor, for this one is a motion to write a letter to BC Ferries and send a copy to the MLA, UBCM, and AVICC expressing our concerns of the new changes starting October 15th that will require to book and pay in advance before arriving at the terminal of BC Ferries. So, I'll wait for a second.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Mealy.
Not used to waiting. So anyways, just so the public knows, I don't know if everybody knows that starting October 15th, vehicle travel from Horseshoe Bay to Nanaimo Departure Bay on BC Ferries will be reservation only. This change is due to construction at the Horseshoe Bay terminal and will remain in effect for the duration of the construction project. The return route from Nanaimo to Horseshoe Bay will not be reservation only. You can catch the Tawasin if you want, and this is probably going to happen till March. And my concern is that there's a lot of people on Vancouver Island, which includes us, of course, we're Vancouver Island, but they don't have credit cards. So how do they make a reservation to go across the ferry? So I have a little concern, how are they going to mitigate that? And it's going to be frustrating for the tourist as well as the local people in our community. And so hopefully, I don't know how to solve that, or how are they going to solve that. And so I just think we need to voice just our opinion. Probably nothing will happen, but at least we've voiced an opinion to that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Solda. Discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, none opposed. Thank you very much. And we will move on to question period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of council on decisions or recommendations made during the course of the meeting. A maximum of 3 questions per speaker will be permitted. Mr. Kannegeeser.
Good afternoon. The staffing reports are very, very useful information for council, but also for the public. May I suggest a couple of additions that be requirements? One is a budget comparison. How are you doing in your budget? So the staffing report show revenue and expenses for the quarter or for the year to date, and then also a projection for where they expect to be at the end of the year, so that they're doing some planning ahead and you're seeing that planning. And the second part of that is some data showing the numbers of employees in that department. Probably last year at this time, what you've got now, the head count, and what you see for the, or what you see is compared to whatever was in the plan and the budget. I think those are the kind of things that council would be interested in knowing and how the departments are doing. Second thing tonight, or this afternoon, talk about, I ask council is, does the city prepare a post-construction project review? Recently, you've completed a number of major projects, and I think it would be useful for the city to prepare a review of those projects, sitting down with the planners, the designers, the contractors, the residents, the neighbors, the businesses, the city staff, the planning department, and say, you know, how could we have done this project differently to do it better next time? What did we learn from this project? What are the pluses and minuses of this project? What are the downsides of this project? Where can we go from here? What can we do better? And I think that kind of a post-construction review would be very useful. So I asked, does the city prepare such a report?
Thank you very much. I'll just firstly comment on your questions around the departmental reports. I think those are great suggestions. Some of the managers do have a budget where they're at or under, but I think a little bit more detail in that could be useful. Certainly, the employee numbers are typically listed the size of the departments in the annual report, but in some departments where there is a lot of fluctuation throughout the year, more casual use, it could be really helpful to see that information as well. And Mike, I'll just go to you for kind of process post-construction projects.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair, yeah, we do a post-construction review. It has started just internally first, and then we do a budget comparison to our budget items. We haven't got to the point of engaging with all involved in the post-review at this time. That is our goal. That would be the best end to a project is to see how we can prevent some of the mistakes that were made. And that is our aim, but we are not there yet on all of our projects. We do have project managers now So that was a good step in tracking the budget and starting to move forward, understanding where we are and closing it off. And then we have started an administrative review on it. But I do take your points on including everybody, including the publicly affected in the areas of construction and also the contractors involved. Some of the contractors do provide us input, but it's not a full-fledged meeting. So I think that is an area we can improve on, and hopefully over the next several years we will.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's an
I
excellent
think
suggestion.
sorry.
If that's okay, I was going to say I think it's an excellent suggestion, specifically the Bird Street project. Obviously, a major infrastructure project, but we did hear throughout from members of the community who were in the area some of the challenges, and so. We hear those in kind of one-off ways. Maybe I hear them, maybe you hear them, maybe they're reported to staff. But bringing that all together would probably be extremely valuable. So appreciate that. And then that coming to council as well would help improvements be made in the future.
Yeah, well, the Bird Street one would be interesting. Councillor spoke earlier about the bump outs on Johnson, but the bump outs on Bird as well. And I wonder what the response would be from the snowplow operator on that work when he has to manage around unseen curbs. Can we learn from that? Is that something that is planned? Is that okay? And the other one is would be interesting, of course, to review on is the Welcome to Port Alberni sign. What is that, $50,000 or $60,000 or something like that? And the purpose of that, I assume, was to welcome people to Port Alberni, to show that you've now entered Port Alberni. The problem is you can't find it. A person driving down Highway 4 Johnson, coming to the intersection of John Road, doesn't see the sign. Hydro poles, wires, trees, vegetation. You're right here on your right-hand side driving before you see the sign. By then it's too late. So it'll be interesting to see how that success of that sign has been measured. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, other questions? Yep. Neil?
Yep. On the policing report, I'm not sure if you're already doing this or not, but it's certainly a huge concern within the general public. I walk my dog at Dry Creek Park, and there's been a few things over the last 2 years that are major problems. But I'm just wondering if the city has solicited any input from the public. I thought it would be very good. I brought this up one time before when the staff directors make their reports, and I also agree with the previous speaker. They're very interesting, but especially in the police report, I'm surprised that there was only one city councillor that asked any questions, because I was just appalled at what some of the figures that were being quoted. And in a situation like this, I don't think it would be out of line for the city council to, not every time a report is made, to say, does any members of the public have any questions they would like to put forward to the person that has the answers? I think that would be helpful. And it includes people in a very important issue right now. People that won't come down to certain parts of the town. I think it's not as unsafe as I think it's sometimes exaggerated to be, but it is unsafe, and that's verified by the report. So I'm just hoping that there was a way of getting the public having more input into their concerns. And even sometimes it's helpful. Is this part of the question? Apologize. Is that so? I don't think City Council is too fond, and there's reasons why that, of having community meetings specifically over one issue. But I think this is one of them that I think would be beneficial. that you can get up there. It has to be moderated very strictly by the right people. And for constructive criticism, ideas as to how we can resolve some of these problems. And I guess a question would be, if a criminal event has taken place, a particular loss of life, it takes a lot of time from our local police to do this investigation. That was pointed out today. Isn't there a system where the government participates in investigations like that? Because why our police force are dealing with this investigation, they're not dealing with the other problems that created the very situation. And what help do we get from the provincial, the federals in dealing with the cases like that, if any? I'm suspecting no. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent questions. So firstly, in some cases, we do get help from the province through the Major Crimes Unit and through other units that come into the community as well when there are specific types of crime. We agree completely. We want our RCMP to be out proactively policing, and these investigations take up huge amounts of time. Council, and you made a comment about council not asking a lot of questions today. Council has a very regular and ongoing dialogue with the RCMP, and so while you may not see a lot of, these stats are not surprises to us, so there may not have been a lot of questions, but it is a top priority for us and an area of great concern. Our local government, I think, supports a lot of that work so that RCMP officers and members can be on the road policing as well. As you'll know, the City of Port Alberni has a pretty significant number of municipal employees at the RCMP that support a lot of the work that goes into these RCMP or into these investigations on the administrative side as well, so that the members can be policing as much as possible. But ultimately, these these incidences have a major drain on the resources that exist within the department. Before you actually said public meeting, I was thinking back to a committee of the whole, actually, that we had probably 6 or 7 years ago, and the title of it was Big City Problems. I hated that title, but it was a really productive committee of the whole meeting where we heard from RCMP, we heard from bylaw, we heard from service providers in the community, and we had a lot of dialogue from members of the public at that time as well about what the priorities were, what the ideas were. Following that, we did pursue a few public safety initiatives, I would say non-policing public safety initiatives. And I always remind people of that because we want our RCMP to be on the ground policing. We want all of the other organizations to be strong and in place that support the work of the RCMP. Public safety is a lot more than just RCMP. It needs to be a fully built out integrated system, and it's not just about investing in RCMP, though that is obviously a critically important piece of it. But maybe it's time for another dedicated committee of the whole on public safety and what that looks like to our community. I actually think, looking back, that was one of the most informative and well attended by the public committee of the whole meetings that we've had. And I personally would love to do another one. So appreciate that suggestion. I think a community dialogue is extremely important in this case.
Okay, just one point, if you don't mind. Committee of the whole, that's a step in the right direction. I'm old school, and I believe in community meetings where we can have a constructive discussion on the do's and don'ts, what our concerns are. We learn a lot by that. It's not always conducive to deal with these things at a committee of the whole, but it's a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Absolutely. And separate from local government, I know RCMP did hold their own meeting, I think about a year ago, on public safety. And that was just a community meeting where people could get up, ask questions, speak as well. So certainly there's other organizations outside of just the city facilitating these meetings. Committee of the whole is just the mechanism we happen to have for it. And I know we've heard your comments about making that less formal and as well. So that's noted, even though you haven't said it yet today. I'll go to our CAO.
Yeah, great discussion, and I know council's priority is community safety currently on the strategic planning. We will be having all departments at our open house again this fall. And it also, we will invite the RCMP there to be there as well. So that's just another avenue where we would welcome input and dialogue, and hopefully we have more information present at the tables for public to pick up and understand what is happening out in the public. But it is a top priority for the city.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public? Come on forward, Joseph.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just clarifying questions. Russell Place, again, proposal being brought forth is an amended plan. Now, it says in the background of it, the intent is to provide affordable and subsidized units for seniors living independently. And questions have been brought up at past meetings, and they weren't brought up this time, and maybe they're not, but some of the things were like walkability, bus service not being available, parking, park space being taken up, a lot of different things. So those weren't, the walkability, the bus, those weren't brought up again, but here's another proposal for it. So we all know there's a need for it, and we think everybody, I don't think anybody would disagree that we have a need for this type of housing. But with that being the case where it's located out there with the walkability, there's really nothing walkable other than there's a coffee shop down the road, which is a fantastic place, by the way. A little plug. But yeah, so there's not there. And then the bus, I think you have to walk over to Falls Road to catch the bus still. So not a great spot. So with that in mind, do you think there might be a better site? And if you were thinking of Port Alberni, like what would be a place that's walkable, bus service, has some amenities to it, where people can get out and do things? Do you think there is a better site, or is Port Alberni such a haphazardly done that there is no place that exists like that? And if there is a place like that, does the city own land in that area? And is a land swap possible?
Well, I can't speak to a land swap, but I will say that we are, quite far into our official community plan, and I bet that's going to give us some locations of where preferred housing of this type would go. That said, we do not control where proponents submit applications for. And while I do recognize that some concerns have been expressed, several of them have been mitigated to some extent as well. And most specifically, we did have BC Transit here very recently and proposed a change in routes to have a stop in front of Rainbow Gardens, to which they said that sounds like a very minor change, given that the bus goes by there anyways, and they are going to work with us on that. So I would say regardless of whether this development comes in or not, just based on the density that exists in Westport and the number of housing units already on the Rainbow Gardens site, I think that change is worth looking at. So we're not looking at the bus route change contingent on this application. We're looking at it either way. So I think good comments. If an organization ever wants to propose a land swap with the city or look at land that the city owns, they certainly are welcome to at any time. Councillor Solda.
I'm just going to add to Rainbow Gardens for that particular site. They're looking at all the services to be there. So if you're living in the apartments and you want your meals delivered, they will come and deliver it. So they have the other apartments there, and they're going to be offering services to the residents there. So they just want everybody in one collective, so you can move from A to B and to different stages of housing. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, just some concerns, and I know they've been brought up in the past. So yeah, just some questions on that one. The second one is with the proposal for the permit at 5104 River Road. I think this has been brought up in the past, and there was mention of, I think at the time, if I remember right, there was no cost to the city on this. I think that, if I have it right. But also I'm looking at it as a permit for a 3-year use for a proposal on that. There's already CCANs down there and some development taking place, so I'm just a little confused. That cart before the horse sort of thing. I'm thinking, okay, there's already stuff down there, now they're asking for a permit. So has something changed on this like is being brought up now, being looked at for a permit, but it's already there. So I'm not quite sure, because I thought at the time it was already approved, was going ahead, and there was no cost to the city on that. There was another group that was looking after all that. Do I have any of that correct, or am I incorrect in all of that?
The project hasn't changed at all in terms of how it was funded. It was a joint city initiative. Mike, maybe you can just speak briefly to the timeline of the temporary use permit.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair, the temporary use permit should have been applied for much earlier in the process. Again, we were working through changes. Again, we do have to look at our bylaws and see when they are permitted in what locations, et cetera, across the city. It is an administrative error that they did end up in place before the permit came forward, but nothing did change. They have not been occupied yet, so we are still within the timeframes of doing it. Again, it is, we wouldn't have occupied them or allowed occupants. You can't actually get a business license if you aren't in compliance. So this will bring them in compliance that we would be able to lease them when they are ready to be leased.
And I would just add to that the timeline of the build was based on the grant funding that we received. So you're aware this is a city-led project. So of course the construction was done with the city's awareness and oversight, and we knew that there would be a temporary use permit coming forward.
That's all. Thank you very much. Just another quick question, just for clarification. When it comes to, I noticed a couple of different times when a council member will leave the room because there's a conflict there. And I don't think this is a conflict, but just for clarification, if somebody's sitting on a board of a particular place, does that fall under that category where it could be a conflict of interest? So you're voting on something that you're sitting on the board of. I don't think that is. I think it's a different sort of thing, but maybe just clarify that for me.
Great
please.
question. So it depends in what capacity you're sitting on the board. Councillor Solda, for instance, sits as the city's non-voting liaison on the Rainbow Gardens board. So she is there as a liaison for information, but does not actually hold a vote and is not actually a formal member of the board. We have other councillors who are board members of different things and will recuse themselves for that reason, as they are actually voting members on the board. And ultimately, it is up to the individual councillor to determine if they have a conflict and choose to recuse themselves or not. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Go to our CAO for a comment.
Thanks, and through the chair, I do just want to clarify that the funding of the whole project down at the city is grant funded. It was not tax funding, so that was fully paid, and that was the rush for getting the cans in place. They had to be in place by a certain time. Some of the after effects are on a different grant that actually have a later timeline. So the timelines were staggered on 2 separate grants.
And also worth noting that we did win 2 provincial reconciliation awards for this project. We are very proud of it, but it has, had to be constructed quickly. The planning of it was not quick. It was a collaborative process between the city, Sechat, and Hoopachesit that went on for about 3 years, not fully focused on planning that site specifically, but on collaborating what a joint project between our 3 governments would look like, and really proud to have been recognized by at a provincial level for the project and the work we did there. Thank you. Any other questions from members of the public? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move adjournment? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. On the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.